Welcome to Third Angle, where we meet the people behind some of the most fascinating design and engineering projects across the globe. I'm your host, Paul Haynes from industrial software company PTC. In this podcast, we share the moments where digital transforms physical, and we meet the brilliant minds behind some of the most innovative products around the world, each powered by PTC technology. How do you craft a lightsaber that is fit for a Jedi? What is launch day like when you're sending a satellite into space? And how do you make cutting-edge transport affordable to emerging markets? And is it possible to feel in a virtual world? These are just some of the questions we are answering in this episode as we revisit some of the most inspiring guests from the last 12 months of The Third Angle. The last 24 episodes have taken us many places, from a mission control center near Milan to the pit lane at Silverstone. But first we're heading to Canada, where we meet Rob Petka from Genesis Custom Sabers in his workshop just outside Calgary. He tells us about the detail that goes into crafting his lightsabers, appreciated by Star Wars fans all around the world, and how his work celebrates creativity and imagination.
I get asked all the time what my favorite saber is, and I have a hard time answering with that one. I tell people it's because they're like my children. There are sabers I like for different reasons. I mean, I have what I would kind of have called years ago my personal saber, which was part of this whole journey was, if I was a Jedi, what would my lightsaber look like? And that's a lot of what resonates, I think, between me and my customer base. So I have that saber that I developed, but I haven't touched it in years. It's old technology. Since then, I've played around with other ideas. I've got a couple that I really like. One of my production series sabers is called the Ascend, and I've got a variation of it that uses an etching pattern that I kind of derived from some of the artwork on a video game called Skyrim, which has nothing to do with Jedi. But it's just beautiful kind of Norse reminiscent artwork that I really love Norse artwork. So I've got some etching on that. And so that one really resonates with me. And then I've got another one that I designed back in 2009. That's my interpretation of a character saber from novels that I read. Drew Karpyshyn wrote Star Wars novels about a character named Darth Bane. And so I created a saber because he didn't have a really great reference. If you looked it up, there wasn't any good images. So I thought, I'm going to create one. And the fans have been great at really resonating with my image. And to this point, if you look up Darth Bane's lightsaber, you'll probably see pictures of my design. That one's been so well received by fans that it has a special place in my heart. You know, just because when your work is appreciated, you can't help but really relish that. I don't know if I have a favorite sound. We call them sound fonts. I've been building these for the sabers for over a decade now. And so the ones that I worked on 10 years ago, there's not as much nuance to them. Even though I've gone back and added to them, the newer ones I just feel there's more quality, there's more nuance to it. I've got a sound font called Rogue, which was long before the movie Rogue One, that I just envisioned as just kind of a rogue Jedi, kind of an off the beaten path. So that was kind of my attempt at making a sound font that would be me if I was a Jedi. So that one I really like. There's also a newer one that I've done called Ashes, which I always felt with the dark side sound font, I never was able to kind of really achieve that visceral feel that I was looking for until this one. I learned a couple of different techniques, and I played a video game where the sounds were really striking to me. So I tried to recreate some of that effect and really kind of capture that feel, and I feel like I nailed it with that one. It's called Ashes. So this is that visceral sound font that I was talking about, the Ashes font. And there's some Easter egg sounds with some Sith. So that's my voice reading the Sith code backwards.
Wow, that's so cool.
So it made it sound like some hypnotic, dark, ghostly language.
Yeah.
So that's in there, and you can find it. So that's that sound font, which I really made with this saber in mind.
That's cool.
And with this one, it's got. I only do this on my really high-end ones, where the user can take apart a couple components. In this case, it's two little screws. And then I'm going to slide the bone segment back, and every lightsaber's got a crystal inside. It's part of the lore, and the crystal reacts with with the saber. It's got red because the blade color is red, but if I enter the color, and then I change the blade color, the crystal responds and it changes color to match whatever the blade color is.
That is so cool. Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of the higher end, more expensive sabers are ones that they can operate as a shelf queen. Someone can take it apart and they feel more real because they can see the crystal. They can respond to kind of the visuals of the inside of the saber. Because they've all read the stories of Jedi creating their lightsabers and crafting them and working on these internal parts. So they want to be able to see and interact with that. A couple of years ago, I really resonated with, I just always do, the word imagination. And something clicked, and I just realized imagination is one of the most profound human qualities. It affects everything. Every great achievement in human history has started as a work of imagination. All art is a work of imagination. The ability to communicate and identify with nature, which I love, there's elements of imagination. When imagination becomes stretched or challenged, that's a good thing. There's opportunity there. Creativity, everything. It's just I was really overwhelmed with kind of this revelation of how big a deal imagination is. And then I step back and I look at our current Western culture, and I just feel like, maybe it's post-industrial era, we've just kind of got into, we value action, we value results, we put in our time, we put imagination in a box, and it often doesn't affect our day-to-day. I mean, I read up this term recently, quiet quitting. Just the idea of just deciding to phone it in, and hey, I'm not going to put in any more than I need to, this is my day job. There's no imagination there, there's no life there. So I just kind of see it everywhere now,
That was Rob Petka from Genesis Custom Sabers. Now, can you imagine what a motorcycle with no frame and no chassis looks and rides like? We went to visit Mark Truman at EV company ARC to hear all about how they came up with the design of their truly original electric bike, the Vector. And we got to hear what it sounds like too.
The project was actually started within the Jaguar Land Rover walls as a sort of secret project. So we would be involved in two types of work stream. One, something the company would ask us to do specifically. So for instance, designing the James Bond cars for Spectre. And we were the first people ever really to land drones on moving vehicles in a meaningful way for a search and rescue vehicle for the Red Cross. And then we would also basically do sort of what we consider the sort of true skunk works type work, which is we're working on it, no one really knows we're working on it, and we had a show that we had to do every year, and over the 12 months we designed and built an electric motorcycle that no one knew anything about. And then when we got to the show, we rode it out into the show to all of the board of directors, and that's basically how the business started. So, this is where the bikes will be built. Obviously each bike is sort of hand-built, bespoke for the customer. You'll see the commissioning suite in a moment, sort of colours, materials. You'll notice differences between this one, which has got a sort of traditional carbon fibre weave top, and also on the side there, on the monocoque. So pretty much everything you're looking at is carbon fibre. Yeah, so you can see the bikes up on the stand now. They're putting the integrated motor onto it now. Yeah, so the build begins. I love this bit. This is like really, this is what you do it all for. This is like the most exciting bit, But apart from riding them, of course, but, to actually see them sort of going into production is, it's fantastic. So I'm just about to start up the Vector now, and what you'll hear is us taking it through its startup process. Like a spaceship, right?
Yeah.
We just had the guy from Wired magazine ride, and he just got off of it and went, Sounds like a spaceship, looks like it should be in trouble.
Mark Truman there from ARC. Did you know there are over 8,000 satellites currently in orbit around Earth? Have you ever wondered how they all got there? At their base, just outside Milan, Lorenzo Ferrario from D-Orbit talked us through a typical launch day at Mission Control.
When it's the launch day, is always a little bit of a strange day. Generally, launches happen at strange times, so most of the times they don't happen during work hours. So generally, a launch day goes like this: that you wake up, you go to work, you don't work all day, because if you try to work but you can't. So you don't work all day. Then, since at least most of the launches that we did so far happened during night. Say a good number of people from the company stay in office. We go out for dinner together, and then we meet for the launch. And then, I mean, even if it's the sixth or fifth time to see a launch, is always a little bit of a stress, because you can imagine that you have your months or something. When it's the first time, years of work that are placed on top of a barely controlled bomb that is barely exploding controllably in a continent far away. And everything happens in 10 minutes, it's a little bit of stress, and I don't think you really can get used to it. I mean, I am not ashamed to say that I cried a few times. But then, of course, then it's like the team, the soccer team at the day of the match. There is the operations team. For that day, they are focused completely, like in a Zen state, which they don't go to work. They just come for the launch time, because they have to be rested, of course, and prepared to take over operations. Because what happens is that we follow the streaming from the video that the launch provider give us. We follow the launch, and what happens is at some point, few minutes or sometimes even an hour after the takeoff, the liftoff, our carrier is released from the launcher. When that happens, the carrier turns on, because the switches on the carrier tell the computer that the release has happened. So everything is turned on, comes to life. And so the satellite, the first thing that it does is it looks for the sun, because it's powered by solar panels. So sun is life. So it stops any kind of tumbling that was induced by the separation. And then after that, it starts calling ground. So it starts opening a radio connection, a radio transmission, which we call the beacon. So every few seconds, it sends I'm here kind of message. And the first time that it passes over one of our stations, which again may be minutes or sometimes even 1 hour after the launch, you have again what is called the acquisition of signal, so AOS. That is the tensest moment, and I have goosebumps just saying it. It's basically you can imagine that everybody that is at that time, which is generally nighttime. I don't know why, but it generally happens during night. Everybody that is in the office goes there on the back of the control center, just outside the windows, and the team is in the control center, extremely focused, especially on the comm position, because the comm is where you see the spectrum as recorded by the antennas. And the only thing you can do at that moment is just wait and see if the spacecraft calls on. And again, goosebumps. As soon as you get contact, as soon as you recognize the signal, the dance happens. So you start sending commands, you start receiving telemetry, and at that point you verify how the satellite is. So if everything is well after a launch, and you start what is called the commissioning of the spacecraft. The commissioning is basically the beginning of life. But again, even if I'm my 8th launch, still goosebumps even just telling it. So I mean, you realize that engineers can cry. So
that was Lorenzo Ferrario from D-Orbit. Next, we're swapping the real world for the virtual one. Actronica are a haptics company, and they've developed a wearable vest which allows the user to feel what is happening in a virtual environment, including being pelted with fireballs. Actronica's Gilles Meyer and Rafael Pajeski told us about their haptics vest, Skinetic, and gave our producer the chance to test it out.
The biggest organ in the human body is skin. You have 7 different receptors on your skin. And your skin depends for whom, but it's about 7 kilos. So essentially it's huge, it's bigger than your liver, and it's always on. In the next 10 years, most interfaces are going to be enriched by some kind of touch feeling, and then, smell, taste are going to come, and you're going to be totally immersed. This is essentially the direction of history. Things are going faster. We're able now to give a sense of touch that is pretty close to reality. Until now, we had a problem because the computation speeds were not optimal. So the touch is the sense on your body that is actually the fastest. So you needed to have response times that were under 10 milliseconds. And now we're able to do that, so we can incorporate that sense of touch into interfaces.
This is what we call a technological demonstration. Basically, you would be in VR and some avatars will be circulating around you, shooting at you, throwing fireballs at you, so that you can get some different sensations, how they can feel different, which is the biggest selling point of Skinetic, is that you can actually make difference between different gunshots and fireballs and lasers, which is not necessarily the case for what you have on the market right now.
All right, I'm going to try this on. I'm in what looks like a ski lodge, and there's birds flying over. Okay, I see a person running from a gun. Oops. Oh, I just felt something. I just got shot. Uh-oh. Now it looks like this is going to be fireballs. Ooh. You kind of feel it go around. I feel it on my back, yeah.
Yeah, it means that there's one behind you. You don't even see it, but you know it's there because you got shot from behind.
All right, now we have wind. Now it's hailing. The speed is getting faster and faster.
Oh, and this is...
Is this an explosion?
This is the last one.
Oh, but great. Oh my gosh.
Propagating.
I can almost feel a heat, and I know there's no actual heat coming, but it's my brain is doing something.
Yeah.
Wow. That was an experience.
In the real world, everything is synchronized. Whenever you grab an object, you would touch the object, you would most probably feel and see the object and hear at the same time. If you want to provide that immersive experience in the virtual world, you have to be able to do the same, because your brain has been trained for the whole life outside of VR. So if you expect your brain to be tricked into thinking that it's a new reality, you need to respect the same laws, and the law would be that synchronization of visual, sound and haptics.
That was Gilles Meyer and Rafael Pajeski, there from Electronica. Now, it's easy to assume that we live in a completely mobile world, but in fact, over 3 billion people don't have access to motorized transport. And this means farmers can face dangerous and difficult journeys when trying to take produce to market. However, one UK company is aiming to change all that by renting out space in their custom-made electric vehicles. Natalie Dowsett and Christiana Hamilton from Ox Delivers told us about the extraordinary difference their ox trucks are making in Rwanda.
So currently we're here in the workshop at Ox. This is where the magic happens, where we are working on our prototype vehicles. We have been working on an electric truck that is purpose-built for emerging markets. So ensuring that people like potato farmers in places like Rwanda are able to get their potatoes to the market. This is changing lives because people are able to increase their incomes. So we have so many customers that have told us stories about how they struggled to transport their goods because they were only able to either carry them themselves or push them on a push bike, which instantly limits how much you can carry and how far. So having access to motorised transport, which they didn't previously have, means that they aren't restricted in the same ways.
So the truck that we're looking at now here is our fully functional first ground up prototype called Ox 2. So the truck itself is actually wrapped in our branding colours, which is a sort of mustard yellow and white, and it's clear on the side of the truck that we are aiming to drive positive zero emission impacts because it is 100% electric. Yeah, so it's an absolutely fantastic project to work on, an amazing vehicle, and the mission itself and what we're trying to do is really impactful and empowering. So if you'd like, we can go for a drive in it now if you want. So some of the main sort of engineering principles that we've tried to follow as we've designed the truck is keeping everything as simple as possible. So if you look at the dashboard, you can see that it's not made out of really complex materials or any form of composite or plastic. It's actually basic aluminium framing that is easy to manufacture and cheap to manufacture, but it still provides easy access to stuff like your drive neutral reverse buttons. All of your switch gear was specifically chosen so that it was easy to use and understand, as well as having an HMI system, so a human machine interface that is effective ergonomically.
In my last trip to Rwanda, I met a banana trader in one of the rural markets. She would have to travel to another rural market to buy her stock. And then to get home, because it was too far for her to walk with her stock, she would have to hitch a ride essentially on a passing bus or a passing cement lorry. So she would have to wait at the side of the road to do that, and that could take up to 3 days. So in that time, she is sleeping by the side of the road with her stock, and she has to stay with her stock so it doesn't get stolen. She is pretty unsafe at the side of the road for up to 3 days, but also she's not earning any income in that time because her market stall is empty. So that is wasted productive time. Now she uses our service, and so she's now able to, one, not have to sleep by the side of the road, which is of course very important to keep someone safe, but also she's been able to increase her incomes because she's not taking the time out to travel to the rural market. We can just go and pick up the stock for her, but also she is able to diversify her stock, so she wasn't limited by how much she could carry on a passing truck or bus, and also not limited to which market she went to. So she's been able to diversify and increase her incomes whilst also staying safe and sleeping at home.
Now that was Natalie Dowsett and Christiana Hamilton from Ox Delivers. Continued thanks to all the inspiring people and companies we feature on The Third Angle. I hope you enjoyed listening to some of the best bits so far, and if you haven't already, why not listen back to our catalogue of previous episodes, available on the PTC website or wherever you get your podcasts. This is an 1860 production for PTC. Executive producer is Jacqui Cook, sound design and editing by Clarissa Maycock, and music by Rowan Bishop.